You're listening to Psych with Mike, and the most important way to support the show is to find us on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. So no matter how you listen to Psych with Mike, find us on YouTube, smash the subscribe button, and we really appreciate it. Now, here's Psych with Mike. Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan.
And I am Brett Newcomb, and I'm excited to be here today because I'm going to learn something new.
You're going to learn yourself something new?
No, you're going to learn me.
I'm going to learn you?
Yeah.
Well,
because you have an interest in something that's so different from any interest that I have, and you wanted to talk about it and bring research to undergird your thoughts. And I read the stuff that you sent me, and honestly, my eyes glazed over. I mean, intellectually, I can parse my way through it, but I don't think this way, and I don't use this this way in my understanding of therapy or doing therapy. So I'm intrigued to hear what you have to say.
So what we're going to talk about is probably, I would consider it a fad, or I guess the equivalent of a fad in psychology. We just talked about Rollo May, who was very famous for saying that he believed that, there was this underlying psychology which was proposed by the masters, so Jung and Freud, Adler, those guys, and that then, we had these other things that built on that, but that a lot of that was kind of a fad. People get bored, they want to find new things to stimulate them intellectually, and so that's what happens in psychology, the same as in any other field, and this is kind of that.
So psychology
Yeah.
is different than therapy.
Yes.
And psychology has a lot more justification for intellectual curiosity and exploration of these things. My focus is always,
Okay.
how is this relevant to me doing therapy?
I have never thought about it that way until you just said that, but now that makes a
happens
lot
to
of
you so
sense.
often.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
I don't know why, but
yeah. So yes, I would agree. Psychology is different than therapy. Yes, I would agree,
Yeah.
and that makes a lot of sense to me. So you're always really, really laser focused on the issues around therapy,
Yes.
and psychology is a bigger tent. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what we're going to talk about today is
in my father's house there are many mansions. In mansion there are many rooms. I just live in one room.
yeah,
You may go through the whole hallway, but I don't.
yeah.
So you're going to try to explain to me how this is relevant to my understanding of doing therapy.
Well, I'm going to explain to you that people are talking about this concept of emotional intelligence, this concept of an emotional quotient, that we've thought in terms of an IQ, intelligence quotient, for a long, long time,
Yeah.
even though, most people who have anything to do with measuring IQ would tell you that the concepts that are associated with IQ are very poorly defined, and we don't know.
So, but again, you come back to the question of what's the field, because I'm aware that social scientists as a category or a group have embraced the field of multiple intelligences for a long time. It's not just IQ, it's not
Right.
intellect that we can
Right.
measure with a Stanford Binet or some other kind of IQ test. But they say, well, how come really, really brilliant people are not functional? Can't live their life.
Right.
Albert Einstein supposedly couldn't go to the grocery store to make change,
Right.
but he could calculate the speed of light. So why?
Right.
How's that different? They say, well, there's emotional intelligence. Okay, I don't have any problem accepting and understanding that. My question then becomes, if I have a client that comes into my office, for instance, someone that's on what we call the spectrum today, somebody that's autistic, and you read these articles that you sent me, and there's some discussion about, well, if they're autistic, then their brain is compartmentalized different, and these cells are triggered by this, and these are triggered by that, and they're connected over here by this, and they're rerouted to that. I don't need that. In my experience working with somebody that's pretty severely on the spectrum, for instance, I had a child that was a client. His family and his school recommended he come to see me. He was in, I think, the 8th grade, and he was what we call a snot sucker. He constantly sucked snot down his throat. And he had a nasal problem, but it was irritating, and it irritated everybody in his surround, and they were mad at him, and they made fun of him. Even the grown-ups didn't like that about him, and he could feel that. He understood, But he didn't know or accept that he was doing it, and B, he didn't know what to do about it or do it differently. And so for me, understanding all of this theory was irrelevant. How am I going to help this kid be less disliked in his environment? And how am I going to help this kid learn to identify the behavior that's irritating people and work to change it in practical ways, whether he understands the need for it or not? So I had to work with the school, the teachers, and I had to work with him and his family on teaching him cueings, like stoplight cues, red light, green light. And when he was doing it, instead of glaring at him and saying hateful things to him or laughing at him or being disgusted and showing disgust, pull out a red card. And then he learned, when the teacher shows me a red card, don't argue, don't say, well, whatever, but excuse yourself, go blow your nose, come back and sit down. Go privately and blow your nose, come back and sit down. And as he learned to do that, and he reduced the volume of snot sucking, he also reduced the negative reactive impacts that he was receiving, these messages of unacceptability. So he made progress and felt better. That's my goal as a therapist. That's my agenda. And I would say that comes under the broad umbrella of emotional intelligence, but I don't feel like I need to know or articulate to the client and his family, the medulla oblongata is not talking to the hypothalamus. I don't think that's relevant.
Well, I'm not as much into the biology of emotional intelligence as I am some other things, but I do think that there were four kind of general ideas that the articles were presenting that I think we've hit on several times, and that was perceiving emotions, being able to reason with emotions, understanding emotions, and managing emotions.
Okay.
And those concepts are concepts that we've talked about before that I think are very relevant both to the individual living their life and also how we do therapy. So the first thing that I would say about emotional intelligence is that I think that the word is something that somebody made up and may or may not have an actual standing in human psychology, right? So this could be a fad thing like mindfulness. I mean, it can mean whatever you want it to mean.
Right.
But if we try and standardize it a little bit, emotional intelligence is really about the individual understanding their own emotional makeup, not understanding necessarily the emotional makeup of other people in their environment. Now, once you understand your own emotional makeup, you might be better able to understand other people's, and that would be great. But as with so many things in psychology, the first thing that has to happen is the person has to understand themselves. And that's what...
I don't know if I agree with you.
Okay.
I think I do, but I don't know that I do, because
Okay.
I think it's also important to recognize what's going on in the environment. If I walk into a room, I need to read the room. I need to know if my father's angry when I walk in the door, because he's dangerous when he's angry. I need to know if he's happy when I walk in the door. So before I sit down and say to myself, I'm going in the room where my father is, am I happy? Am I scared? Am I sad? I want to go in and find out what he is.
Well, so do you think that you can know what he is before you know what you are?
Absolutely. Because sometimes I am what I am based on what he is.
Yes, so you can have a reaction.
Yeah.
But I think that, so in my worldview, we have to understand ourselves before we can really understand other people.
And I would disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think we're in an environment with other people that we have to manipulate. We have to survive and prosper. So early on in life, we discover there are different environments in which we go. And we become slightly modified or different in our presentation of ourselves in each of those environments.
So would you not then need to understand yourself to be able to make those gradations?
Yes, to a degree, but not predominantly. I mean, yeah, it's helpful if I know I'm keyed up and I really need to slow down because I'm going into a danger zone. Not be all bouncy, loud, voracious, vivacious. But even in adolescence, going through high school, we talked before about high schools have cliques, social groupings, and you are put in one of those cliques based on social cues that are you're identified by others. The clothes you wear, the car you drive, where you live in the neighborhood, what your parents do, how you carry yourself, how well you speak or write, what grades you make. All those things are known to others, and they react to you and invite you into or exclude you from their groups based on that. But you can change that. You can change their perception. You can change your acceptability if you learn how to do so, which to me is emotional intelligence.
I agree, but that's because you're learning how to manipulate you to be more approachable in other environments.
Which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
Yeah. No, I think it's both are relevant.
Yeah.
I can manipulate how I present my personality. I can't necessarily manipulate how I present my surroundings. For instance, when I was in high school,
yeah.
we were very poor. I had 4 pairs of pants and 4 shirts. 4 black pairs of pants, 4 white shirts. Every day I wore a white shirt and black pants because it's all we had. But I made those choices to pick those clothes because that way people couldn't tell how often I was wearing the same clothes. They would just know that I always wear white and black. That way, if I went into a different group, I could try to seduce that group into accepting me based on other rubrics than my physical appearance.
But I would argue the reason why you were able to do that was because you knew yourself.
No, I knew them. I hear you. I just disagree.
Yeah. So on my email, I have a tagline that says Nemo.quad non habit.
Yeah, but that's because you're arrogant.
No, it's
because you speak Latin.
No.
Oh.
I had someone
because you want to impress
constructed for me.
Yeah.
But it is Latin for you can't give away something you don't have.
Why don't you say that?
Because it's cooler if you say it in Latin.
Oh, cool.
It's cooler.
Okay.
But the point is, so let me ask you a question. Do you think that you can truly love another human being if you don't love yourself?
To me, that's not the first question. The first question is survival, and the second question is prosper, and the third question might be love.
Okay.
So
but
I have other questions to answer before I can look at, do I love me or them? I mean, I'm just me. I have to survive. Do I like me? Do I appreciate me? Do I think I'm really cool? That depends on all the feedback that I get and how my environment interacts with me.
But you don't think that as therapists we would say that it doesn't depend on that. It depends on what your own self-concept is, and you could be true to your own self-concept regardless of what the external stimuli are.
Oh, I think that may be a goal to work towards, especially in terms of developing what we call self-confidence or overcoming or redefining scripts that were given to us earlier.
But isn't that the point of therapy, is to build self-confidence and self-esteem, to redefine scripts?
It is a point, yeah. I don't disagree with that. Just the terminology and the timing. I don't know that I assign a rubric of steps. I try to take the client where the client is and help them get to where they want to go. I believe that involves building their self-confidence and their sense of strength and their ability to say no, their ability to pursue whatever they want to pursue, even if others in their surround oppose that. How to do it in the safest way, how to do it in the most successful way. So when I sit with a client and I listen to them talk about their circumstances, I try to hear all of that in the background, and what I don't hear, I ask questions about. So what happens at home when you talk about wanting to go skydiving? What happens to your friends? Do they embrace that? Are they in awe of that? Do they support that? They think that's an adventure you should do? They say you're a friggin' idiot. What does your wife say? What do your kids say? But I just read a book, a novel. Why does it have to be so hard? And it talks about this middle-aged woman in England who was a very successful business person, but now she's a mom, and she gave up her job to stay home and be a mom. And her husband was very successful, but he went through some kind of emotional crisis and quit work and went into, quote, therapy almost full time, 2 and 3 sessions a week, and became a bike rider who dressed in Lycra all the time and rode his bike 10, 15 miles a day. And he's not paying the bills. He's not making any money. She has to figure out, what am I going to do? Why is this so hard? And so she has to go back to work. And she has trouble finding a job. They say, well, you're a mother of teenagers. You're 50 years old. Your job skills have atrophied. Who are you? Well, she's not in control of her destiny to make all those decisions. So if she comes to me for therapy, I have to get the picture, and then we have to nibble at what moves can you make safely and successfully, and who are you trying to change? You're trying to change your husband, make him go back to work. You're trying to change you. You're trying to change the perception of a potential employer. And how do you do that?
So let's go back to the example that you had of, walking into the room where your dad was. Your dad was an angry man, and you needed to know whether or not he was angry. So doesn't that first, though, come out of what your own emotional state is? Like if you walk into the room and your dad's angry and you say, "What's the matter with you, you stupid old man?" What's going to happen?
No.
Right?
If I walk into the room and I don't notice, then I'm in likelihood of being hurt. So it's a survival skill for me. It's not a curiosity.
But you still had to know how to be able to manage your own emotional affective responses to be able to stay safe. Yes?
Those are survival skills. You just shut down. Be quiet. Be still.
And
I can remember wiggling around on the couch for whatever reason while we were watching football or something. My dad was watching. We always watch whatever my dad wanted to watch.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm getting hit by a belt because I'm making noise and I'm not being still. So I learned to just sit there and be still.
And so you learned how to manage your own emotional states.
I guess for me, it's a situation without a difference. I
Right.
agree with you.
Right. And that's what happens.
But, how many angels can dance on the head of a
Right,
pin?
you've said this all the time, is that we think the same way. We sometimes use different language to describe it, and that's what I'm saying. I think we're saying the same thing. I think we're using different language. But for me, the first thing that I think of when I'm doing therapy is helping my clients to be able to manage their own emotional states as effectively, efficiently, and authentically as possible. And we can move out from there. Now, certainly we can talk about, yes, you need to be aware of what your emotional reality is, and certainly you have to react to that. I agree 100%. But I think that the first thing I have to do if I'm going to manage my own life effectively is manage me.
So, Michael, how do you do that? I mean, you're talking to me about that, and it feels almost argumentative or persuasive. Is that your role? Are you trying to persuade me? Are you trying to encourage me to consider that I might benefit from viewing it differently and how to view it differently to test the theory?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have whatever language you have, and I would never try and...
I'm talking about the process.
Yeah. So the way the process looks is, somebody comes into my office, especially males come into the office, and they're just
they have
mad.
that male thing that they've learned in our culture.
Right.
Yep.
They're pumped up
Yep.
and they're just mad all the time. And one of the things that I want to say to people is, what is that doing for you? What is being
Can
mad
you take that off and park
doing
in the
for you?
corner?
Yeah. Is that really creating an environment or a lifestyle for you that is what you want and the most
Absolutely. I
effective
agree
that you
with
can
you
have.
100%.
And so the first thing that I got to do is talk about, okay, so if you're mad all the time, what are you mad about? And are you really mad? Because for a lot of us, what we've done is we've figured out a way to dump emotional energy in the safest, at least perceptually, the safest way possible for males in our society.
So I hear you,
Yeah.
and I agree with you, but I would frame it a little bit differently.
Okay.
I would say, this is how I'm experiencing you. Mm-hmm. I may not be accurate, but this is how I'm experiencing you in this moment. You feel this way to me. Am I getting that correctly? Do other people have this reaction to you? How does that work out in your life? Instead of saying to them, you are this, you need to stop that, you need to put this over here.
Right.
If they say to me, well, how can I do that? Then I can say, well, how might you do it? What skills do you have for doing it? How many shirts do you have in your closet? Can we put a different one on? Would that help? If you wear pastels, are you calmer? If you wear black, are you less calm? You get teenagers that are all in black and black nails and black hair and black lipsticks and say, what are you conveying? What do you want people to see when they see you? Do you ever want that to change? You want it to be different?
Right.
So,
and that's one of the things that I think that that we would agree on is that the goal in therapy is to present to clients potential options
Yes.
that they could choose to help change their lives.
Yes.
And for me, one of the places where that starts is helping them to understand what their own emotional reality is and how can they manage that in a way that is most effective for them.
So the most critical question of the conversation, which of us is more emotionally intelligent?
You.
Okay, we agree.
So, on that note, the music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike and Brett.
I think that was really good, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's going to get clipped off.